So Baggins submits it, and he says, I feel like he missed a lot, or maybe map control is just that dead simple. Well,
Hey guys,
we will find out. I'm going to play it at 1.1, just to min-max, or 1.15, just to min-max the efficiency. One of you guys voted for Platzin at the end. That my job is to protect the president, help the front line. Yeah, your job is generally not to help the front line a whole lot, because it's a really good way to start eating Zen damage and get your HP chunked. Your job is to kind of help the angles as much as you can and prevent dives from succeeding. All right, let's check this out. Oh, he's got epic pin pulled up. My epic pin is bigger. Ha 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 ha. Oh crap. So I don't know who this is, but we will go over it.
it's Phaffer, and today we'll be talking about map control. The reason why I'm making this video is because I feel like map control is a very, very, very important concept in Overwatch, and it's not fully understood by the entirety of the Overwatch.
So the way, by the way, let me just put it out there. The way I describe map control is controlling the parts of the map that allow you to do more stuff. The high grounds allow you to do more damage, the corners that allow you to be safer, the chokes that allow you to punish the enemy team harder, and generally it comes around flank control. A lot of the time it involves flank control. Not always, but a lot of the time it involves flank control and like how you get the flanks, how you get the angles and things like that. And people fight for the think for the fall. People fight for flanks and angles. If they get the flanks or angles, then they win. If they don't, they don't. But that's the way I describe map control. I know Jane did a video a while back that was extremely extremely convoluted. But to understand, map control is not complicated. You just control the parts of the map that you want to control. If you're playing a May comp, you'd like to be able to control a choke. If you're playing a spam comp or a dive comp, you'd like to control the flanks and the angles. If you're playing a Rhine comp, you'd like to hold like where's good for the Rhine. Yeah, you got submitted, Phaffer. Oh boy.
So that is my goal.
Yeah, so don't overthink it. Just think, where do I want to be? The only difficult part about map control is understanding the importance of flanks and angles, and you as an individual knowing where's good for your hero to play. Who did this? I don't know. One of my viewers submitted under Hammertime.
Cool. So first off, what is map control? I define map control as a team's current usable map space compared to the opposing team's amount of current usable map space. And you know, when looking at this definition, it's very, very important to look at the word usable, right? Because we can control parts of the map, but if they're not usable and if they're not providing us any value, it doesn't matter, right?
In other words, well, who cares if you're controlling, you know, the 900 yards behind you? Nobody wants that. Nobody cares about that. It's the map control only matters with a relevant part that you can use or you want to use.
So, in my opinion, Overwatch, map control is the name of the game. In my experience, the team with map control wins 99% of the time, and the 1% is.
By the way, remember, guys, positioning, timing, and communication. Map control is positioning. Literally, positioning is just map control.
Just due to mistakes, unlucky occurrences, or
map control is the majority of positioning. At least that can keep in mind, chat, that this is like more like team based. So
mechanical.
See you, mate.
Now these stats aren't actually
good to
real.
see you. It's been a long time.
A way of me saying how like important map control is in Overwatch. Okay, so what makes map control so important? Map control provides us with what I believe is three very, very important things. One of it being information.
Sure.
It's information. It provides us with the ability to be aware and scout what the enemy team is doing, which is very, very important, so we can react accordingly and set up for, you know, a proper fight or a proper engagement. Two.
So in other words, if you control high ground or you control flanks, it's not just about the damage, it's about the fact that you can actually see more of what's going on.
It provides us with options, right? If we have map control, we can dictate where we want to take the fight, how we want to take the fight, and you know, it gives us options about how we want to set up and, you know, really what we want to do, right, based on this information, of course, right? And three, these options also provide us with angles, right? So map control gives us angles, right? And angles, or you know, provides us with multiple angles of pressure while denying enemies angles, right?
It's gonna be on my grave
when we take angles, what happens is we're able to force.
Did I say grave strone?
Right. So for example, say we have a Reinhardt like this, right? He's shielding, right? and we're all stacked shooting
Jacob
this one
Clifton.
shield, right?
Angles.
You know, we're only going to be shooting his shield, right?
That's it.
And to make it more effective, you know, how can we make him burn more resources while he's in the open using his shield is we have an angle here, right? So now not only is the shield being burnt, right, but he's also losing HP, or we're shooting the squishies that are hiding behind the shield, right? Because we've set up these two angles, right? And it is very, very important
this is Hammertime.
to note that all three of these things, when we have map control, we don't only give it to ourselves, but we deny the enemy team.
Ah! He said it.
We have map control. We don't only give it to ourselves, but we deny the enemy team. That's what we deny these things from the enemy team. We deny them.
Because remember, even if the angle isn't as strong for you, denying the enemy team that angle is also very strong. Like the Tracer versus Ball mirror matchup that we talked about. It's not just about, oh, I can use this angle. It's about, if they get this angle, my Zen is dead.
Right? We deny them options because if we, depending on how we set up, we can force them to take a route, right? And, you know, we also deny them angles, right? Okay, so next we'll look at the types of map control. There's
I love this
two types of map control, and
two types of map control.
Those two types are direct map control, which is, you know, physically being in the space.
Okay.
So this space is mine because I'm physically here, right? Or, you know, being able to directly pressure that space when someone enters it. For example, if you have an Ashe, right? An Ashe is set up here, right? She's overlooking this space, right? If you step, maybe black's not the best color to use.
No.
If you step into this space, what will happen is this Ashe can directly pressure you by pressing left click,
So she's good
right?
LOS on
So that's what direct map control is. You know, physically being in the space and being able to directly pressure that space. The second kind of map control is indirect.
I've seen that one coming.
So indirect and direct. Indirect map control is the threat of being punished for being in a space, right? And what I mean by this is, take an example like Winston. Say this is a ledge. Winston's at the top. And, you know, we don't want to make a rotation through this space where Winston has the threat of just dropping on us, right? Or, you know, rotate through any space where Winston has the threat of jumping on us, right? Okay, so, you know, this is like the basic.
I actually think that you could have simplified this further. I don't think there's a real big difference between direct or indirect map control. I think what you just described as indirect is the threat of punishing you for walking in that space, but that's exactly what you described with direct with the Ashe example. Like the threat of Ashe hitting a shot with her sightlines, the threat of Monkey jumping in the sightline, the threat of you walking in and Tracer shoots you from an angle. So I don't think there's really a difference between indirect and direct. I think it's the same. You have map control, you don't, but how you apply it. Because if a spot is controlled by Monkey, isn't that the same thing as a spot controlled by Ashe? I don't think there's that big of a difference. But
of map control, you know, why is map control so good, and what kinds of map control are there? Next, we'll look at some examples, some Overwatch League examples of how they use map control. And, you know, it's important to note that map control applies to all compositions and maps. The only thing that changes is the scale. And what I mean by that is if we're spam, right? You know, we set 2 people here, 2 people here, 2 people here. We control all this map, right? All this space here, right? But on Brawl, the scale is going to change. Now we have, say, 4 people here, 1 here, and 1 here, right? Now we control this space as opposed to all the space that the spam controls,
sure.
right?
Brawl, because of its range limitations, has limitations with how much space it can control. Now, you guys have seen me coach McCree on Busan, and I'm of the opinion that going on hard flanks, literally like across the map as Cree, definitely works, and it has worked at the pro level, because he has the longer range, etc., etc. But it's a gamble. It's something you have to be very careful about. So the reason why you generally see Brawl not controlling as much space is it just can't. Like it doesn't have that, like a Lucio standing on high ground doesn't have the same level of threat that an Ashe does, right? Same thing with a Reinhardt, with a Mei, etc. Tayo and Lethal and EU.
So, let's look at some examples.
But yeah.
First, we'll look at Brawl. Example from Shock versus Philadelphia Fusion. And this is a note that this is a Brawl dive hybrid. And in this example, we'll see how Shock take map control. So in this example, we see direct map control right now. So we see direct map control with Sombra taking the same angle, Reaper taking the same
Did you say Shock takes control away from Fusion? I was going to say, no, it looks like Fusion is actually got better than Shock, but okay.
And these people being in here, right? Direct map control provides them with the information, knowing that no one's here, right? And you know, we can all see them.
Sadly, no, Raphael, no. We did that earlier. Now we're on Hammertime. So basically, somebody sends in a VOD, educational content. I tell you whether it's trash or not. So you mess up a lot. Nobody cares. Like nobody. Like here's the thing. People mess up in delivery all the time, but you're doing a 13-minute video where you have to make no mistakes talking in a row. Nobody can do that. Nobody can do that. So it doesn't take away from your point. I'm just making fun of you.
Stacked here, right?
But you're absolutely right. The fact that there's Sombra established control in here and the Reaper got in here through here for free, it means that there's nobody from the enemy Shock can, or nobody from Shock. See, did you hear me? Nobody from the enemy Shock. What does that mean? Nobody from Shock can stabilize here because of Reaper, and nobody from Shock can stabilize here because of Sombra. So you're absolutely right.
It then also provides them with options, right? If they want, they can all stuff into Dojo. If they want, they can all go here. If they want, they can take a front-end engagement and just roll Shock with these angles, right? And then, you know, they also have angles, so now they're pressuring here, forcing this Diva to make an option of like, hey, do I want to DM the Sombra? Do I want to DM the Reaper? Do I want to DM these guys? As well as giving the Moria the option, do I want to right-click this? Do I want to right-click core? You know, what do I want to do? You know, Lucio, do I shoot these guys? Do I shoot Sombra? You know, they're faced with these...
The other thing that you can touch on as well, I'm not sure if you're going to, but the reason map control and the reason why map control is good is not just because of like the vision manipulation that you're describing, but it's also because cover just doesn't exist. Like Winston can't stop taking damage here. He can't stop taking damage here. He can't stop taking damage here. There is nowhere to hide because of the angles that allow people to shoot continuously. There never is any corner.
These options of what they want to do. Or well,
my chat is almost dead. I should pull up
a
my
dilemma
phone.
Because of the angle, right? Well, these guys aren't, because you know now what our Diva can do is just DM forward, right? Because all the damage is coming forward.
Sorry,
right?
chat. I'm pulling up chat on my phone.
Fusion's Diva can just DM forward. Makes sense. We'll watch it play through, right? And knowing this, what they can do is they actually take a front end engagement, and with these angles, they're trying to abuse the fact that they have.
Like, look at this Sombra ult charge. That's all you really need to know. 20 versus 34. Even the Reaper ult charge as well. And like you see the Winston here. Where like what is the Winston supposed to do? He can't hide.
So they go in hard,
bang,
right?
bang,
you know,
bang.
Also enabling us to get a hack off the Sombra angle.
So yeah, that's a really good example.
Very good hack target. Next, we shall look at Dive. This is Titans Dive. Nope, that's the image of it. This is Vancouver Titans versus Gladiators. And we'll look at how they use indirect map control to take space.
Indirect map control.
Take map control, right? They use indirect map control to take map.
By the way, chat, as I'm doing Hammer Time, feel free to ask questions as well about what we're going over.
This is probably one of my favorite plays I've seen in Overwatch League. I really, really like this.
Oh, this is good. I've not seen this.
Okay, so we'll stop it there.
I actually think Fissure screwed up there. I don't think Fissure should have dropped there, but...
And then we'll pull up an image because we only had the Overwatch League, and we'll look here, right? So what happens is they TP everyone up top, right? So then Reaper, Ana can get set up here, and then they can actually speed boost, jump their Winston over top here, and get everyone set up here, right? And by doing so, what they do is they create angles, right? And you know, Gladiators being on the brawlier comp that they're on, they know they can't play in this space because they'll just face with angles, right? Winston can just drop on them and then reset. Well, you know, Winston drops, attention split, now Ana slips in a nade, and Reaper's coming in, right? They know they can't sustain that, so they try to minimize angles by going over here, right? And what happens is they actually lose map, right? So now Ana can get set up, and she throws the nade here on the engagement, right? Reaper gets set up, he TPs here, and now they're engaging from multiple angles, right? Yes. And, you know, they also had
and the angles mattered because in this situation here is you can establish the high ground, and the high ground allows your monkey to go and then drop, and he's taking no damage. Whereas if he comes from here, he's going to take a lot of damage, right? This Reaper TP plus Winston dropping then will allow your Ana to look for a nade because the Reinhardt is no longer shielding this direction, right?
That's right. They could have played this slower. They could have set up their Reaper this way, so then he still has his fade ability or his shadow step ability. But yeah, that's an example of indirect map control and how, you know, map control is used in Dive. Next,
I just don't think the indirect versus direct is necessary there. I think it overcomplicates things.
Atlanta Rain, and you know, this is more direct map control. Like, you know, you step into a space, Orisa is going to directly pressure you, right? Same with.
I think you could argue the indirect map control is you could argue indirect map control is, I wouldn't even say they're direct. It's the pressure, like you said, it's the actual action versus what the action forces you to do. In other words, is it really just the ash shooting you, or is it what the ash shooting you makes you do? So let's dictate direct map control as the ash shooting you, and indirect as where you end up positioning yourself to avoid the ash shooting you. And there's value in this as well, because you make them position behind a box. Okay, now everybody can move around because they're all hiding. That's what I think. That's what you're trying to describe here. And I think you're doing it well. But I don't think your example with the Winston potentially dropping on you is a good example. I think point pressure is a great example of indirect map control, where you force them to make a move. You know.
Same with Sig, same with Bap, right?
Yeah, what Phaffer says, if you position really close to the choke, then what happens when point's pressured? Well, you have to go send back people, and then there's a big gap between people at choke and people on point.
Same with Junkrat, stuff like that. Free. Right.
It's called classic Atlanta rain.
So you can see that right off the bat, Paris tried to take map control by taking these two angles, right? But because of just the front end pressure that Rain has, they can just kind of overpower, just kind of walk through, right, and punish these off angles, right? And then what they do is they take these angles. Now they've taken map control, right? And you see that Fielder and Exy, you know, they realize like, hey, we lost map control, like we're down, right? And they try to reclaim map control by swinging wide and taking an angle to punish the space, make the space no longer usable for Rain, right? Or maybe get a pick, right? So then they force them out, right? And yeah, with that front end pressure. And then what we'll see here is how Paris Eternal retake.
So I think I have a small little nitpick here. I don't think Atlanta Rain did a particularly good job of abusing map control at all. Like, to me, this just feels like a good halt and just a crazy rock. Like, the chances of that being followed up on are really low. That's just a screw up. The only way Atlanta Rain beats this with a positional is if they clear here and they clear out this angle before pushing core. And when they cross this little open space, they have to move very fast because that's where the angle here is really strong. So I think you're explaining it well, but it could be better.
Right, that Fielder and Exy, you know, they realize like, hey, we get a pick, right? And then what we'll see here is how Paris Eternal retake using like the concept of map control, right?
Because Paris Eternal clearly have like a better understanding of like the game. Like you can see here, like the deepening of the angles, like you're nailing it.
What you'll see is them come over here and then develop two angles, right, to pressure these guys who are now stacked because they've given up a lot of the map control, right? Because now they're going to be taking.
In chat, why do you think Paris Eternal are pressuring this angle and not this angle? Because obviously you just don't go down to main. But this is an angle too, right? You can pressure this angle and pressure main at the same time. So why do you think they're going main and here? Why? I don't want Phaffer answering because Phaffer is too smart. Why does high ground matter? Why does high ground matter? No general answers. Look at the comp. Tell me why high ground matters. McCree, yep. If Paris Eternal were running Symmetra, you'd probably see this instead. But because they're running McCree, they can afford to do this. I remember watching this live, and I saw as soon as Atlanta let them rotate their McCree to high ground, I knew this fight was already over. I knew it was over as soon as I saw this. Atlanta had to pincer here. They had to pincer here. They could have put a Junkrat up here and pincered them in this rotation. But if you let them take angles away from you, it's over. And at this point in time, Atlanta has already lost the fight.
Now stacked because they've given up a lot of the map control, right? Because now they're going to be taking pressure from two angles.
And angles at ranges that these heroes are really good at, right? Kree's very happy to play at this range. Symmetra not so much. Do you see it? Brilliant.
And you see how much space Paris Eternal is able to.
I mean, here's the thing. This is really difficult. This is like, okay, when I describe, like as Phaffer was saying, this is Overwatch. Like it is arguably, like I said, timing, positioning, and communication. And communication is ironically like the hardest to do, but the easiest to understand. And timing is a very easy concept to understand. But positioning is very difficult. So if you're struggling to understand this, don't feel bad. I could probably be doing a better job explaining this. I don't really have the time to right now, but I can help a little bit, and over time I'm sure you'll get it. But this is Overwatch. This is the most important. This is everything right here. So if you're struggling to understand it, don't feel bad, because this is Overwatch League level. This is like, if you understand this, then you're way ahead of the game. It's not like you're not understanding like the very basics. I'm saying this is the most advanced concept, the most important concept of overall Overwatch. And if you're struggling to understand this, it's understandable, because this is a big concept.
To claim by doing so, right? And then you see in mana range trying to wrap around to reclaim this map control, make this space now theirs, right? But it's not enough because of how much
Handman looks impressive there, exactly.
Able to do with the map control.
Because you could look as like Handman also would like to go high ground, because he's got good range and he's got good spam and he's got a corner to play. And then as they bottle up in here, Handman just has to press W, and now his primary fire is hitting 6 people in the choke. So without overcomplicating this here, Paris Eternal does this rotate because they'd like to get their McCree in high ground, because long sightlines equals good. And because if they get high ground and they get main control, Atlanta cannot hide from damage. There's no corners to hide from. The only place for them to hide from is in here. And if they go in here, they can get capture point, and they can spam in the small room where Junkrat and Sigma are better at. But can Atlanta shoot them up here? No, there's corners, right? So all Paris does is find spots where they can shoot people and make them have no cover, but they can have cover themselves. They deny enemy cover, but they keep cover themselves.
Pressure from 2 angles. Space. Paris Eternal is able to claim by doing so, right? And then you see in mana range trying to wrap around to reclaim this map control, make this space now theirs, right? But it's not enough because of how much Paris Eternal were able to do with the map control they've taken, right? So there are the examples, right? So we looked at map control, its importance, its benefits, the different types, and how it's applied. I hope this video was helpful to you guys, and please do not hesitate to ask questions, provide feedback, and share your own thoughts. Just like you guys, I'm here and I'm looking to get better at my own practice, and I can't do so without input. Below, if you guys want to reach out to me or find out more about me, I'll provide my Discord tag, my socials, my Discord server.
Okay, don't give a rip about that. Okay. I think you could have done a better job with a little bit more visual examples, and my nitpick about the example used with indirect versus direct. But honestly, man, this is one of the better videos that's been submitted to Hammertime. So very, very easy score here. Beefed. Nice video. Yeah, you got a buzz in the background as well. Nice video. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Very well done. And chat, this is Phaffer OW. You can look him up on YouTube. I'm going to subscribe and I'm going to like. Highly recommend, check it out. Looking for organization.